and welcome to the Service Operations Podcast. I am your host, 𝗙𝗵𝗂𝗃𝗂𝗃. Our guests are from different industries and functions. They will share their experience, strategies, and the changing landscape to help you take the service operations of your business to the next level.
Hi, GD. Nice to have you here. And after all the tech issues that we have had in the last few weeks and changing the platform back to simple Zoom to record this. So for our podcast listeners, a brief introduction. GD has been in the banking and finance space for over 30 years. And most of the work he has done has been around fraud prevention and risk. Over to you, GD. Tell us a little about yourself, and then we will take the conversation along.
Wow, it was definitely quite a challenge being in a very tech-evolved environment to struggle on a link. I think we have crossed that, and we are now doing this. Thank you so much, 𝗙𝗵𝗂𝗃𝗂𝗃, for having me.
My pleasure.
It's so lovely to connect back after a long time, other than the Bangkok visa visit. For everybody, I'm shortly called as GD because I have a very long name, 𝗙𝗿𝗂𝘂𝗵𝗂𝗋 Balasubramaniam. So, it's complicated. So GD to be short. And it's been a very interesting 30 years for me in banking and financial services. From Ashok Leyland Finance to HDFC, HDFC to ICICI, ICICI to Citi, Citi to Temasek, Fullerton, and now DBS Bank. And my core area of fraud management started when I set up fraud in ICICI Bank, where we are called Risk Containment Unit, RCU. And fraud continues to be my main area of focus. And we are very few people in the industry today who manage both consumer fraud and also corporate fraud. Call me a hacker or whatever, but okay. I ensure that the way the bank looks at onboarding a customer is correct. The customer's information being provided to us is authentic. And then hand over the case to whichever journey, let it be a Digi app or a loan app or a loan journey in a regular DSA platform, happens in a very, as per the banking regulations and for the bank policies. And one very important statement I forgot to mention before we started this conversation is, GDB, I'm giving you my personal views, my personal likes, my personal dislikes. It has nothing to do with my employer or my employer's views. So I think it's important for all of us in this to make this a very candid comment. So we've been extending management of fraud, and I believe fraud management is basically common sense management. You want how much of risk you want to have and how much of risk you're willing to take. Yeah. The trade-off, I think, is where we look at customer experience, customer onboarding. I still remember the days when we were hiring dozens of DSAs, dozens of franchisees. Now they're all gone. They are there, but if they're there in a web, they're there in a ecosystem partnership, the money mantras of the world, etc. The touch and feel is gone.
Yeah.
So I still remember, I think I did speak to you many months back that when we started in ICICI Limited, then become ICICI PFL, it was all Excel sheets. Yeah. And month ends used to be mad. The customer was very important then. The business numbers were always aligned to customers. But what happened behind was something only the banks knew. I think we have transformed completely, keeping the customer in mind. Even today, the customer is in mind. His expectations have not changed.
Yeah.
Our expectations of the customers have changed. It's quite a contradictory comment I'm making now. Earlier, we had the product, we had the asset, we had the loan, we had the vehicles. So they would come to us. Those days, we had bookings of cars, we had stocks of vehicles, let it be commercial vehicle, or let it be two-wheeler, or let it be a car. Their companies, banks, financial institutions had the bookings, so the customers would have to come to us. And they would want the least amount of finance because it was quite insulting for them in the society to tell me that they have taken a loan from this bank or this NBFC. So they would come to us and say they want the minimum finance. That used to be 1 lakh of rupees then. And they would be so embarrassed to walk into a finance company, give them the ITR. They will want to know why they're giving you the ITR. And when it comes to PDCs, they used to feel they're giving something from their own body to us. And that they would, want to write everything themselves. look at the check 3-4 times and pre-close the loan in 8 months. That has changed from the guy wants to pay down nothing. The bank gives you everything. There's nothing called as PDCs anymore. It's all electronic. So the way we are looking at the customer is the same, but the customer expectation has changed pragmatically from a bank's perspective. And that's why I think the pain factor is not solved. I'm sure from a customer-facing, front-facing industry, be it a call center or be it the IVR that we have, do we really understand what the customer wants? And therefore, are we able to solve his problems? There's still a big churn there. Today, we say we have bots, we have instant choose your language and you get somebody speaking to you in Urdu or Bengali or Hindi. But that personal touch is missing. They have a preset of questions and answers right in front of them, and their job is only talking to customers. So maybe you're catching he or she at the end of a shift or the beginning of a shift where the quality is better. We're all humans, right? We are not. That's where in fraud also, when somebody calls up saying that they lost a card or their transactions are not their own. So which shift? Are you fresh? Are you, able to get more information? I think that's very key. The fact that it's being recorded, you have a supervisor listening behind you, all that is fine. But when you ring the fire alarm, it's because there is fire, right? You either put out the fire or you get burnt. I think that's where strategically, I don't know, you tell me better, Satyan, that because you're a much more experienced person when it comes to managing customers. We have learned a lot from you, and we work together on a lot of delicate situations and customer-facing issues. I think we have changed a lot. But sometimes I feel what we were doing then made better sense even today. And many of the changes that we are doing today is forced upon us because of technology.
So let me just try to put together the way the changes have happened. So shifts have definitely happened in a few areas. One of them is identity area. So earlier we dealt with people, rather we lent to people, or people who reached out to us were people who either we knew as a company or as individuals, or somebody we knew the people who came to us. So there was this relationship bit that existed. We weren't reaching out to people who were completely not known to us. So I think clearly scale has been enabled because of the way we operate now. There have been identifiers. So if we talk in the Indian context, we have the PAN, which can be checked. We have Aadhaar, which can be checked. So you can check the name, you can check the address and other details. So there are documents today, checking of which is possible because of digitizing and because of technology. Otherwise, it's impossible to identify an unknown person. So I don't know if you recollect, if a customer gave us an income tax return and we had to make an arrangement to go to the income tax office and then check and find out from there whether the return that he has provided is genuine or not from the income tax department. And it was a physical exercise. So many things have become easy now because the human being has some kind of an identification, some documents by which he can be identified. So of course, the human touch in the process has gone missing, and it's also not required because the document then represents the person. And but it has helped, scaling to a very large extent.
Absolutely. And when you tell me about Aadhaar card and PAN card number, I'm very happy. But at the same time, I must caution you, we have multiple Aadhaar cards for the same guy. We have multiple PAN card for the same guy. So some amount of streamlining has to happen to make sure the right customer or the good customer has an easier way to getting a loan or getting his service from the bank. Let it be a deposit, let it be an investment, or let it be a loan or a mortgage. For example, mortgages used to be the most dreaded department in any bank. All the good for nothings used to be ending up in mortgage, the last reg in the banking. So that is not the case. That was actually the area where we were actually handholding customers at every stage. It was like a relationship that we were building for a 25-year-old loan or a 35-year-old loan. Yeah. The kind of conversations, the PD that we called as personal discussion was so thoroughly organized. We used to gather so much of information about the customer, his wife, where are they working, a lot of family background. And replacing that today with automation, I don't know whether it will give you the same thrill or the satisfaction the customer wants. It's all gone. The moment you talk, it's all either a builder funding deal or it's either some kind of a market banging that's happening for a promotion, etc. It's changed pragmatically that it's more of a necessity than a need. Everybody needs to have a two-wheeler loan. Everybody needs to have a car loan. In between that, they have a home loan. Between that, they get married. So you have a clubbed income coming in, mixed expectations. Then you have children. So for everything, there's a loan. Everything, there's a facility. It's quite weird, right? It was not like that when I was in school or you were in school. There was no loan at all. Going to a bank would be quite disgraceful. Coming. I don't want to sound very oldie or very conservative, but how can we make this much more exciting and meaningful for our customers? How can we make it much more relevant, purposeful for the relationship? Banking is nothing but relationship.
I think we've got used to this convenience, and to a very large extent. If you look at the last 2 years of COVID, there's very little that we have missed in life, except, of course, going out and meeting up with people. Everything that we have required, we have ordered online. And the retail therapy of buying things, just for the sake of buying those which we don't require, also have been done. So it's all there. There's a whole generation of people who are used to this current way of living. I think I don't even, think that we are very far away from this kind of a setting. So where does this exact universe of fraud exist in the current way, where you have so much of technology and the amount of checks that you do?
The cusp of the issue is fraud is there everywhere, as long as you know where to identify it. Anything that is materially manipulated is fraud. Anything is, for example, we used to do FI, field investigation, when we used to send somebody to the house and also to the office. So when we used to send somebody to the house, we would ask them whether the house is neat, clean, well maintained. Is it his own house or rented house? Invariably, they would never say it was their rented house. They would say it was their own house or their family house. But when the income tax return would come, it would mean that he's paying rent and therefore he's got that section being followed as rent. Or you find his employer is paying rent to the place, so you have an employee deduction. So that is not fraud. It's misinterpretation of information. Then you have so many facets. How did fraud come across in India, basically? We saw this happening in mortgages. When people wanted higher sanction amount with the limited income that they had. So the credit had a policy, the customer had a policy, the DSAs knew it upside down. So they would tell the customer very beautifully, aap net off karke, just remove all the deductions, make it look gross, increase your salary by 10,000 rupees so that you will reach up to 75%. Then there's a 3% margin approval that we can get. Month end, we will put the file, your case will get approved. I used to actually wonder, are we really going to manage this? But honestly, we came about it beautifully. But coming back to the fact of how fraud is impacting today, everybody wants things like this. No questions asked, money upfront, questions later. That's in one way good, as long as we have the right kind of profile, the right kind of loan to be given to. But today, the gap between the customer and the bank is not far, but the intermediaries have become high. The number of people will tell you what is bank's policy. Go to them for this loan, you will get it. You have consultants, you have agencies who will tell you what you can do, what you can apply, what you cannot apply. But that's where the challenge comes, when how people start fabricating documents, people start fabricating bank statements. Nothing is non-fabricatable. That's why material fact becomes very good. And in one way, automation and technology help, because I can ping income tax department directly to confirm whether this is your form 15H, is this your income tax records that is there in the records of the income tax. So to a great extent, mitigation of fraud is happening. Similarly, with your Aadhaar card, I can confirm your mobile number, your date of birth, your identification, etc. Then too, there's an element where you can still get defrauded today. And since we are living in a country like India, where the knowledge base is very low, the intelligence base is lower, going by what the other person says, going by what the other person is doing is what we are impressed upon. And many people do this not knowing what they are committing themselves to. Overstatement of information, understatement of facts, etc. And because of this COVID, when we're not seeing anybody face to face, everything it just moves digitally. So it's quite a challenge for us to see what kind of safeguards we can build in, from making sure the right customer comes into the bank for the right quantity of loan. And more importantly, are they contactable? Today, we have devices that can detect whether the email ID you are using and I am using is genuine. Is it linked to all my other apps? If I'm applying for my bank app or whatever, I can real-time check whether your geolocation is where you are staying, is where you are working. We have so many scientific logs that come to say 8 hours in the morning at this geolocation is matching with your address of office, so office verification waived. 7 p.m. in the evening to 7 a.m. in the morning at this geolocation for 3 days, your resident verification is waived. So these are all the luxuries we have. But again, having said that, if somebody is using a VPN, somebody is using a blocker, somebody is using a phone that has got malware or bots coming in, then it's a very different ballgame when you see the amount of hacking that's coming in, the amount of SMS phishing and scams coming in. The innocent people are getting a hit, not the intelligent people.
I have my doubts because people who think they are intelligent also get duped sometimes in the process. And, sometimes as consumers, sometimes even otherwise, we're quite careless about the way we do things. The thought that's coming to my mind is that we have seen transition, from paperwork to what we have now. There wasn't even a standardization of papers. I don't know if you recollect, every state had a different format of a driving license. So the company and the bank, in this case, had to have that kind of intelligence to know. So I remember, we used to train people on, this paper recognition as to which format is how, in which state are you dealing, which state are you talking about, and how to identify a fake driving license, because we used to do, the address check with that. So as they say, as a lock starts getting larger or the lock starts getting more and more complex, the thieves also become smart and they are still able to open the complex lock. So as a risk professional, where do you stand to be able to prevent frauds? You need to be a few steps ahead as a risk professional. That's one question. And the second question I want to ask you is, since you are outside India and you have a kind of view of countries from outside, are the kind of problems the same, or are they different, or what's the difference?
As a risk person, today, fraud has become the center of any life cycle. So we have made it a steadfast aim in our institutions, wherever we have fraud management, that fraud sits right in the center of the life cycle. That means, what do I mean? From the time the product manager is talking about a product, whether it's going to be a pilot, whether it's going to be a big launch or a just 2-city launch, they involve us from scratch. From the time you go to the storyboard, what is the product we are selling? Who's the target segment? What is the ticket size? What are the kind of profiles you're looking at? What is the tenure? 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, 8 months, 12 months? What is the kind of repayment? What is the asset quality, asset value, etc.? And then we see the entire journey from the time they draw in the storyboard. Customer comes at point A to point D, where the money gets dispersed. So I'm able to see and plot the entire customer journey end to end. When I see that entire journey end to end, I'm able to very clearly say, there could be a possibility of some gap coming in here. So it is best positioned at point C and D before the final approval happens for disbursement. That means what? I have a fairly good idea as to how the customer is going to move through the various stages that we have built in internally to make that loan happy, that satisfaction happy. We call that a straight through processing, no questions asked. So it's very important for me that we are doing lawyers. How do we do lawyers? Are we doing Supreme Court lawyers? Are we doing High Court lawyers, or IPS officers, or engineers, professional engineers? So who's a target segment? So what are the kind of questions we can ask this segment? We can ask the same set of questions to everybody. Then there will be a customer issue. There will be people who feel very insulted to be asking this question. So we understand the entire journey of the customer end to end. And then we position ourselves at that point. It could vary from product to product. It could be a consumer loan. It could be a two-wheeler loan. It could be a consumer car loan or whatever. So we decide that particular point at the entry where we are positioned and we check. We check the antecedents, the information provided by the client electronically, digitally, or physically. We looked at all the aspects of verification to say that, yes, this is good to go to the next stage. So the credit guys have a big comfort saying that whatever they would have checked otherwise has been checked by us from a perspective of stability, character, ability to pay, not from a credit perspective, but from an overall perspective. What is his profile? Does his profile and the information provided to him in the application form gel? Is he a VP with just 7 years experience, but the company is a non-private company, local company? All that information we're able to provide him. And one very important challenge we have sort of brought about in fraud management in risk is at any point of the customer stage, assuming we have said okay to this customer and the guy moves to the stage 2, at any point, anybody in the hierarchy having a doubt or a hesitation can refer the case back to the fraud analyst, where any additional specific checks that are required that is not covered in our aerial checks are addressed in a very professional, meaningful manner so that he can take an action out of it. There is like saying neat and clean house. So what? There's nothing in there in the house, or is it very well maintained in the house? We need to use very choice language, and we need to be very professional in what we are saying. And all this happens digitally, and everything is automated. So the amount of time we spend on the field running something out is very, very minimal. So that's how we've been able to support business. For the first time, you find people getting fraud into product discussions, product launches, let it be wallets, let it be debit cards, let it be e-cards coming in. We have a fraud guy always sitting in all the discussion. Earlier, we used to be the last guy along with collections to know that this product is getting launched. We couldn't do anything. Everything was already printed out.
Along with
collection. So how many simple things that we could have, how many things we could get, we used to be the last to know. But now we are the first to know. It's a big change. And many a times we tell the business guys, this may be a better way to do it. This may be not a good idea to do it. So we are able to partner in any constructive argument, any constructive support. I think that's very important, where we both are responsible for the profit and the success of a product. Because I'm just a cost center. I don't have any P&L that's going to get into my salary or get into your salary. So that's very constructive, and we're very forward looking. And the other thing that we always do in our fraternity is be in touch with everybody.
That's our very important. Actually, that's another, which is very different from how service operates. Let me just tell you, I was just trying to find out. Service is always under wraps, if you really ask me. There are no numbers. Of course, I think even on the fraud side, numbers are not so public. But other than numbers, the networking of people and the risk and the fraud side is much, much higher. I did spend last 3.5 or 4 years almost on the financial crime prevention assignment. Whereas on the service side, people don't talk so openly about things that are going wrong, even though in my view, fraud, a customer who gets affected by fraud basically is a disservice of the organization to the customer. I mean, the fact that we have allowed him to get defrauded, is something that I would consider as a big disservice to the customer.
80% of your customer complaint used to be for this only, right? Overselling, underselling, wrong selling.
Yeah, mis-selling is another thing. Mis-selling that generally is not called fraud.
Never paid.
But it's quite got regulated. I mean, things are quite different, over a period of time. Card is a very mature market, and, the rules of the game are very clear. Everybody knows the rules. Earlier it was like, I think that happens when the products are new, when you are, introducing new products for the first time. And more than new, it's when you go mass. when
Absolutely.
When
Absolutely.
you go mass, then this does happen.
That is where, Satinder, just coming back to a very valid point that you brought up, is that's why our networking is very important.
Yeah.
What is happening in Karnataka should be known to the guy managing Kerala also. Both managing Karnataka should know what's happening in Nagpur, Allahabad, and Kanpur also, because fraud goes in the same direction, pay slips. So the trends are the same, but the way they react used to be very different. For example, in southern India, those days, the Maruti van used to be the most safest product to lend to. The same Maruti van in northern India was the worst product to lend to. It be used for all clandestine purposes, transferring goods and services to the black market, etc. So market intelligence was something very relevant. Our networking is still very strong together. We are able to get information officially within prescribed means about a negative guy. And the endeavor is to make sure a good guy never gets held back because of a misleading comment. We always keep that in mind as very high ethical practices. We will think 3 times before telling a guy that his papers provided to us are not genuine. We would not categorize somebody as fraud just because we feel it is. So the mechanics and the processes that we have built into the various horizontal organization is very, very ethical. You can say somebody is fraud, but to say that a good guy is a fraudster or is committed fraud is the biggest crime that you can do from an ethical perspective. We uphold this as a very important part of our fraternity. Let it be our vendors, let it be our own fraud managers today. So market intelligence is very important. Even today, market intelligence is very important, especially from an India context. There are WhatsApp groups, there are a lot of WeChat groups coming up where sensitive information is shared, especially that could impact the exposures to other banks. And we always get the information at the last minute. A bank knows a customer is bad only when he's not able to be making his payment or he's not contactable. So we try to bridge whatever small dots we can and help the credit guys and the business guys. So our entire approach to being fraud managers has changed and evolved in a big, big way. We are part of all conversations that happen in business and credit, and we are in portfolio reviews.
That's quite useful. In fact, that is very useful. But now just see, we are talking about, tangible products or tangible security. Okay, so if you're talking about a car or you're talking about a house, there are these frauds today do not adhere to any geographical boundaries. That's the other thing. So it's like it's more international now because you just can't trace money on many occasions.
That's where when you say the second part of your question was, what are the kind of frauds we see in other markets?
International.
Honestly, it's the same. We call it differently. We call it MO, modus operandi. We call it about inflated pay slips. We call about stage managed setups, syndicates, etc. But the fraud brick and mortar cement is the same. Unfortunately, it doesn't have a separate corporate in Singapore or Hong Kong or Taiwan. I'm more worried when I deal with Hong Kong or China because the way fraud is done. For example, you said intelligent people also click onto links. Why do you think an intelligent guy clicks onto a link? Because the link is better than your bank's link. The web page, the color, the focus, the font is perfect. Maybe there's a small error that is made in the email signage or in the link.
Everybody is not able to spot those errors.
So that's why when you tell me even the intelligent people, the most capable guys are clicking to the link is because, see, it's an industry. As much as you and I are talking today, there are people who are working saying that, hey, Satinder and GDV are talking today. Let's have our own call to see what are all they talking about. They're always 2 steps ahead of us. There's never been a day we have been ahead of them because those are the guys who are with us in our industry, in our rooms, in our compounds, who are with us, who are not with us, but on the other side of the fence. They also have a P&L. They also have an innovation lab. They also have a tech advancement lab. Just like we have hackathons, they also have hackathons. No, that's the way the industry has grown, and it's a $1 billion industry. It is not a country, state-specific industry. And today, COVID has led to so many more innovative ways to say, click on this link to get your booster shot, and your account gets wished up. So look at the way they are timing it in seasonality. for this season, you get this fraud. In that season, you get this kind of frauds.
Yeah.
But the challenge is, Satinder, we always have to keep educating people. That will never stop. Let it be bots, let it be advertisement, let it be flyers. Today, there are no more physical statements. It all comes electronically. Today, we have people talking to you on the chat bot. Everywhere, we have to reiterate that please ensure your credentials are good. Please use good authenticated software. Do not use pirated software. Don't use emails from unknown domains and hosts today. Please be careful where you're sharing your information on social media. Have you ever Google search your name and seen how many people sound like you, Satinder?
Oh.
Challenge you. Do that. There are 7 people like me. That is the world we are living in today.
Yeah.
How many of you know that you have been browsing on Google for a particular product? That same product will appear on your Facebook page. Have you ever noticed it?
Yes, yes, yes. It's scary.
Privacy is the biggest price of wealth today. Information security is very important. And people today have no qualms about sharing their business card or sharing their email to anything that shows something exciting for them. You go to a mall, you drop your card because you get some anticipated gift, and that's of no use. You just dump it in the bin right there. I think the way we are willing to share information, that how many people in your Facebook group are actually your friends?
You don't know. Yeah, you don't know. But then what is the way out? See, the thing is that today the way to reach out to the world, or the way to reach out to people, is through these platforms, right? And the basic information that you will give, it will be your email ID, and in some places for your, what do you call it, dual verification, you will also give your mobile number. So these are the 2
factor
things.
Authentication. Yes, absolutely.
So these are the 2 things anyway you give, because that's become your identity in the virtual world. We don't meet people, we don't have these, or even if we meet people, we will not be able to reach out to so many people as social media allows us to do.
Yes.
So I think that's become a way of life, and we need to figure out ways of how we can protect ourselves against what we are doing, and we are doing it with open eyes, right?
See, that's where I think the data, breaking up the data is very important of our client base. We have more problems. We have lesser amount of problems in the younger client base, up to 20 to 25, 30, because they know what they're sharing, they know what they're giving away with. But the next level of age is where we need to be slightly more careful about. And above 40 and above 50 is going to be a different segment of risk rating that we need to give. So we are trying to look at how the risk, the age, we call them the millennials. Millennials are those, no problems. Tack, zap, you want to do banking on WhatsApp, it's for them. You want to do banking on Telegram, it's for them. But you ask the second and the third sector of people, they are very happy with their traditional internet banking or the traditional banking app. The traditional people, or the guys who are slightly much more wise, have one email ID for their bank. They do not use the same email ID for banking for their Facebook or for their Twitter account or for their Instagram account. So these are all small changes that you can bring in. You can get into a much more safer email provider like Proton Mail or something like that. I'm again not selling Proton Mail, but there are so many emails that are secured.
It will be useful. It will be useful, after we finish this, or whenever, in a day or so, or, I think you circulated it a few days back, but if you could list down some, few important things that individuals could do to secure themselves, because we're dealing with so many apps and so many passwords you need to remember. I mean, it's like, it's not so easy anymore, in the sense it's not just one key that you keep somewhere. You really need to remember a lot of things. You need to. So I think, it would be useful to just refresh, some
absolutely
document, if, which individuals could use to secure themselves.
Absolutely, because I think personal finances are something very private. It is not something to be shared with the entire world. 1, 2, today husband and wives work together. They have their separate apps. So there's much more privacy. So there are some basic discipline that one has to have. Like what I said, have only one email ID for all your banking apps. Don't have the same app, the same email for all your apps, for all your accounts. That was 1. 2, today, wherever you go, people are running out of Wi-Fi. This was not there 3 years back, But today, in the last 3 years, everybody only wants Wi-Fi. And today, the cell phone providers are providing you with so much of data, 50 GB, 60 GB, and we're still running for Wi-Fi. Wi-Fi is the most dangerous part of data, where anybody can look at your data, look at your phone, come into your phone as you're chatting with them, look at your keystrokes, look at your passwords that are stored in your Google Chrome browser. You ask me why I'm not using Google Chrome browser, just to not to divert. In a cookie of the browser, all your logins, all your passwords are already there. Yeah. If somebody is going to Control-C, Control-V, as I'm talking to you now, all my password is gone already. I may get a mail from Google saying that somebody tried to log into your account, but it's too late.
Yeah.
So the idea is, I'm not saying everything is going to be secure, but we need to take some very conscious steps of discipline in knowing how you want to do it, what is acceptable to you, is there a price attached to it, how much of price is it worth it, is it providing security to your children who are also accessing financial institutions apps, who are using your credit cards. Today, many of our parents are getting huge billing on games coming in from their children, running to thousands of dollars, which they're not even aware of their children have been using because of card not present. These guys have their parents' phones, hand-me-downs that they're using. They go to the Apple Store, click this game, download, start playing, not knowing it's going to be charged for them. Only the first 2 games are free. The third game, it says a small text comes. These guys are so excited, saying they just click it. When the father gets the bill, $17,000. So we need to bring in a lot of moderation, a lot of adjustments in the way we look at things. We should enjoy life. We should be able to take nice new changes, but with moderation.
Yeah.
Anything happening too fast is dangerous. Anything happening too slow, you should be worried. And I'm more worried about those who are in the second and third stage of the ages, where 40 and above, where they're not very comfortable with the millennials. The millennials are not comfortable with the seniors. I think we need to moderate it. Banks also have to look at the way they look at these age segments, importantly, when they're having a call center or a problem resolution or a job resolution, so that solutions can be there. It is not to say I had 17 calls today with no closures. That's not the data we're looking at, right?
Yeah.
It has to be much more meaningful, and we need to be much more predictive as to why a customer is having a problem than rather the customer calling and telling you he's having a problem. That's what banking is all about.
Of course, there's a lot of work that happens behind the scenes as far as fraud prevention is concerned. There's a lot of data churn, all your rules that are there. I mean, there's a lot that institutions and organizations do to prevent fraud. Our discussion has been interesting, right from, how things have changed from paper to, the virtual world, and how organizations have changed in trying to cope with, what's happening. At the same time, as individuals, what are the kind of things that we should do to save our own selves from getting cheated or defrauded? So,
but my only one sad part of my grouse, should I say, with my profession, I don't mean disrespect to anybody, but we never get the money we need for fraud. Across organizations where we have worked over the last 30 years, fraud is the least budgeted, least apportioned, least in the top 5 spending list for any bank or financial institution. That's to change, because the denominator is so big that they don't even think this 2 bips or 3 bips is going to hit their P&L. That's changing. That is changing in leaps and bounds. And if you're going to make a bank redo the entire algorithm and the software, it's going to cost them a bomb, and it can't happen overnight. If they start now, possibly in the next 5 years, they'll be where they want to. I think the funding for fraud and risk-related platforms have to be upgraded to priority red, because that is today the key driver for the profitability of the bank. And with the kind of regulators coming and beating down your neck for cryptocurrency, buy now, pay later.
That's going to be another, I think, big changes in the way fraud needs to be prevented in those areas.
Absolutely. We have the right people. We have wonderful people in our country and overseas who can manage it, but they need the right kind of tools for the right kind of fraud to be caught. It is no more a singular fraud. It is multiple fraud. The persona of fraud is changing, evolving rapidly. as we open up our borders, as we open up our windows, we see more air coming in and more air going out. I'm worried about what's going out more than what is coming in today. Second is, most importantly, we need to have more allowed sharing of information, much more closed user groups coming in within the company, regulators share information, more fraud databases coming in. People should be willing to share information when they have had a hit. I think that's very important. Today, if you look at FMR1, FMR2, and FMR3, who is actually giving all the data? I don't know. I don't want to comment about it. I think the transaction of fraud is important. A reputation of a bank is sole criteria in this. We have seen what has happened in various banks because of poor controls. Just by giving a fine doesn't mean you've been reprimanded. But what are the controls you're putting back into place to ensure that this doesn't happen again is much more important.
Yeah, prevention. See, in fraud, I think prevention is the only way out, because there shouldn't be a repeat. I think these basics of, first of all, identifying it as soon as it happens. I mean, the lesser the time, the better equipped you are, the more you can prevent. Second is the modus operandi should definitely not be repeated. I mean, that's like, one of the very key things. The third is, of course, we need to, have that feeling for the person who has got, the customer who has got defrauded, and try to figure out and find means of, how you can compensate someone who's been defrauded. Yes, that's like a very sad thing, because sometimes people lose all they have.
Absolutely. And today you have insurance also. How much will insurance pay you back? Nothing, but not your reputation, right? So I think this conversation should go to the next level. I think if people listening to both of us feel there is some sense in what we're talking about, we're not selling anything, but if the people above them can see that what we are looking at is something that they need to look into, their respective organizations, I think that will be the best part of what we have spoken to. Then to just a very small tip of what we have talked.
But we'll wait for you to just, share some of the things that people can do at a personal level.
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah. So,
and that's where I am very happy with the DSI, Department of Cyber Defense, where Mr. 𝗪𝗂𝗂𝗃 is doing some wonderful work in talking about cyber crime and a lot of training material in schools and children. Fantastic. But one man is doing a great job, but we need 100 more people like him.
Yeah.
I think it has to be, since we are a large country, since we are having a large amount of cultural and social groups there, we need to get into the urban areas, villages. That's where today everybody is thrilled with geo, click, and that happening, 70 GB of data. I'm actually wondering where it's going to blow all up, honestly. Because that's where the mass is, that's where the transactions are, that's where the money is flowing.
Yeah.
Not in the Mumbais and the Chennais of the world. It's in the Kanpurs and the Allahabads and the Sholapurs, that where we are going to see traction coming in.
I just missed talking about it. One of my podcast guests, 𝗂𝗂𝗃𝗂𝗃 from South Africa. So she was talking about this very interesting from an education and communication with individuals is concerned. So there they have this organization called SABRIC, which is, South African Banks, I think Risk Association kind of, and where they have a common messaging system. So it is not like, each bank or each financial institution is doing their own messaging, but SABRIC does it for collectively for everybody. And that has a much higher impact, because first of all, there is uniformity in the message, the way it is being communicated, it is coming from a single place. And and it was a private, getting together of banks to make this happen, which I think eventually would have been taken over by the government. But she was talking about this common way in which communication happens. And because it is common, of course, it has its, advantages of cost. And no, it also has advantages of cost and all, because it's one message which everybody is going to use. And the recipients also, because nobody today banks with only one bank or, deals with just one institution. Everybody is everywhere, And so that was one very, interesting thing that she spoke about, which I don't think is happening to a very large extent in most countries.
Absolutely. I think that's going to be the key of being fast in reacting.
Yeah.
We shouldn't be the last to know. We should be the first to know. We should be able to predict something is going to happen.
Yeah.
And that's where I was having a lot of hopes in these fintech companies. But
Hmm.
as much as I'm very excited about these fintech companies, I'm wondering how many of them will actually survive. Because whenever I see a unicorn report or somebody going with an IPO, it's nice, but how many didn't? How many failed to reach the mark? I think that's more worrying to me, because that's where the real potential for development is.
Yeah, so
today.
we have basically, in short, we have you have your data floating everywhere.
Yeah.
We're not just within your country. It's like it could come from. We still get those mails where they say that someone died and left a lot of wealth for you, so you send details.
Yes,
I mean,
see,
can you
absolutely.
imagine how old that modus operandi is? And
It still works.
It still works.
works.
I mean, it's so old. I think since email started, or I think at 20 years for sure, people getting trapped in this thing, and it still comes. One-off email will still come to us. So yeah, I think we as humans need to change the way we do things. So very interesting conversation.
You have a call blocker today. You have a call blocker that will block numbers that are not in your contact list. You will have a SMS blocker to block messages coming from SMSs that are not known to you. You'll have an IP blocker saying that this IP. How many blockers will you have? Then what is the phone for?
But
what
it's
is the
still
laptop for?
No, but you can't do that, because see, today that the person, the delivery boys who are supposed to, the delivery people who are supposed to deliver your package, if they cannot find your address, they will call you to ask you where exactly it is, so they are standing over here and you tell. So you can't even, you don't really have that kind of liberty to not attend to calls which are not in your contact list. So you have to pick a phone which is an unknown number.
Absolutely.
So it's not so safe. I mean, I think there are many things we do. We need to be alert clearly, and we need to just,
look at what happened. Look at what happened in America. Amazon trains were being looted regularly for the last 6-7 months, where people broke into Amazon luggage compartments in the goods carriers, looted stuff and dropped stuff that was not worth carrying, too big to carry. And this was happening for more than 6-7 months. Today you have this coming on YouTube, CNN, BBC. But what was not the stealing of the Amazon packets? The Amazon barcodes have the entire details of the client. So I'm not worried about the fact that some 20 laptops were stolen or some Nike shoes were stolen.
Yeah,
that barcode information that is there is the same thing we used to tell people when people used to get their air tickets. We used to tell them, please destroy your air tickets.
It's very difficult. Actually, see, even when you get your package, and when we take what is the contents and we throw the box. The box has the label fixed on it. I mean, I really don't know how much one can protect.
Absolutely.
Your data. And
but we still don't stop shopping, no? But we still don't stop shopping. No? Don't stop getting mails, right?
No, we can't. Actually, now we've reached a stage where we can't stop doing certain things. All we can do is to make sure that, we are protected. I think
that's where, if you look at the way the mobile manufacturers are, taking stand in today, let's say for iOS, it's very clear that they will not share your email ID or address or anything else unless or until you don't want to share it.
But you share it. But see, when you want to download an app, you are giving your email ID. Without that, you can't download the app. And what the app has, you don't know that. iOS.
No. That's where the difference is. You will share your email ID, but it'll go in an encrypted manner.
Okay.
It will still read as 𝗙𝗵𝗂𝘂𝗧, but they will not know whether it's 𝗙𝗵𝗂𝘂𝗧 or apple.com or yahoo.com. That's the challenge. That's a change that we have in technology today. So many people don't like it.
Yeah, but I think eventually this is what's going to happen. The world is moving forward. We all are moving forward with what's happening. You cannot stay away
from it. Fraud will be there. Innocent customers will still be there. You will have the fraudsters still worrying about why we are talking so long in this call today. But it's going to be evolving. As much as we can stress to the people, be fair, be clear what you want, be disciplined, know what you're doing, what you're signing up for, be more conscious of what's happening around in the market, in the world. Please be more well-informed. don't read about new Tom Cruise's movie coming out, but look at what's happening in other markets where frauds are happening, crimes are happening, etc. I think that's how we can sort of make them realize the issue.
Yeah. So very nice talk, and
Absolutely.
very nice to have you on the podcast. Thank you so much for sharing your experience and for your time. And next time, I hope we have less technology issues.
Oh yes, thank you so much, Satendra. I went back in time. Thank you so much, and I think as much as we both enjoyed it, I think people should also enjoy it. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful evening. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.